This time, the Russians destroyed Oreshnik, a massacre in the center of Moscow and panic in the Kremlin. The creators of the Oreshnik missile were targeted. Who really decided to eliminate the Kremlin's top engineers? The details are shocking. Killers, teenagers, and a reward from Putin. He fought back with a briefcase. Absurd insider information about the assassination attempt. Don't miss it. And Russians have started to sense that something is wrong. Russia's capital is urgently being hidden behind air defense towers. Dozens of new installations are being rapidly erected around Moscow. What are the consequences of the attack? What is Putin preparing for, and why are they fortifying Moscow? Watch all the details right now. Greetings, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Andriy Silikov. I've prepared some truly hot news from the Kremlin for you. In a twist of irony, the creators of the Oreshnik were nearly stabbed in the center of Moscow. An assassination attempt was made in Russia's capital on the very heart of Putin's defense industry. The targets were leading employees and 70-year-old scientists Vladimir Simakov and Alexander Lobentsov. These old men have been churning out for decades. Semiconductor lasers, components for the latest Russian weaponry, including guidance systems for that very same much-hyped Oreshnik missile. But who attacked the keepers of the state's top secrets? No, it wasn't an elite special forces unit. They were ordered to be killed by a 14-year-old schoolboy, Ilya Osipov, and his 18-year-old accomplice.
The story surrounding the attack on the scientists at the defense enterprise is still under a complete ban by the authorities. Federal agencies and the media were ordered to keep silent about the incident. Two young men approached the institute. 14-year-old Ilya Osipov, pictured here, and 18-year-old Filip Karapetyan. Osipov attacked two scientists with a knife, while Karapetyan acted as the cameraman.
He tried to defend himself with his briefcase while the underage Ilya inflicted serious wounds to Simakov's neck and chest. His adult accomplice stood nearby, filming all this chaos on his phone as evidence. The second engineer, Lobentsov, was a bit luckier. He managed to fend off the knife-wielding attacker with his work briefcase. High-quality Russian security doesn't work even when it comes to the most important personnel of the Russian Federation, on whom the missile potential of the aggressor country depends.
The victims were employees of a defense industry enterprise. The scientists and developers were Vladimir Simakov and Alexander Lobentsov. Simakov was the first to be attacked and suffered much more severe injuries: stab and cut wounds to the neck, shoulder, and chest. He was hospitalized and is still in serious condition. Lobentsov managed to resist and defend himself. The scientist fought back with his briefcase and ended up with only a cut on his hand. He has already been discharged from the hospital.
An order from the Kremlin. There is certainly one interesting thing in this story. That is the motive. After being detained, the juvenile offenders admitted that they were carrying out a secret special assignment. Unknown handlers in messaging apps told them that they were not working for Russian intelligence services. They were promised 1 million rubles for eliminating top engineers. And attention, a personal reward from the President of the Federation.
As the suspects themselves told their parents before being detained, unknown individuals told them that they were carrying out a secret operation. For the Russian intelligence services, they were promised a bonus of 1 million rubles and a personal reward from President Vladimir Putin. Both young men hold pro-government and monarchist views, and their pages contain a lot of related content.
Let us recall that the complex these scientists were working on is the very same Oreshnik, or as the Gore found out, Kedr. A missile created on the basis of the RS-26 Rubezh, which Putin so eagerly brandished before Western countries.
As our project discovered, both were involved in developing components for modern weapon systems. For example, for the so-called Oreshnik. And
while engineers on the ground waved their briefcases dismissively, something unsettling is happening in the skies over Moscow. The Kremlin has clearly sensed that something is wrong and realized that Ukrainian long-range drones and missiles are now a harsh reality. A similar fear of inevitable attacks forced the Russians to hastily erect a giant ring of 43 tall towers around their capital. On these structures, made of embankments, concrete and metal, they are now mounting their anti-aircraft missile and gun systems. Panzer S-1.
Ukrainian long-range weapons are penetrating ever deeper into Russian airspace, overcoming air defenses and striking important strategic targets. Against this backdrop, it appears that in Moscow, there are fears that the Russian capital itself could become one of the potential targets of future massive attacks.
The construction of such cyclopean structures speaks to only one thing: the Russian military leadership. In horror, they can clearly see how Ukrainian strike systems are penetrating ever deeper into Russian airspace, turning their oil depots and arsenals into ashes. Raising the panzers onto towers is an act of desperation, an attempt to somehow increase the field of view for their blind radars. Putin understands that one day a swarm of our drones will fly straight at him, and he is urgently trying to fence himself off with an iron barrier in the sky. While engineers wave off concerns with their briefcases and Moscow is surrounded by air defenses, Putin's generals are devouring each other. Shoigu's loyal deputy, Tsalkov, is being thrown behind bars. This colossal chain of corrupt marauders is massively destroying the Russian army from within. How the total split among the enemy is accelerating the inevitable defeat of the occupiers to the maximum, and our victory. Watch in the report.
The calm in the Russian Ministry of Defense did not last long. The investigation has reached Shoigu's closest associate, Ruslan Tsalkov. No one knows as much about the former minister and Putin's friend as he does. Tsalkov followed Kuzhugetovich around like a Decembrist's wife.
No one was closer to Sergei Shoigu. I even think his mistress was less close to him than Tsalkov, because it's been more than 30 years. In every position, whether it was the governorship in the Moscow region or a post in the Ministry of Emergency Situations or the Ministry of Defense, he was always his closest and first deputy. So this is a super trusted guy, a person who, of course, is not a military man, not an emergency services worker, and not a politician at all. But he held these important positions, and everywhere he was one of Sergei Kuzhugetovich's main money men. And we see that now, when he has already been taken down, Shoigu is left without his closest associates at liberty.
The only thing is, unlike John the Decembrist, Tsalkov never renounced his privileges, let alone his wealth. Of course, like any respectable Russian official with a modest salary, he registered everything in his children's names. And Ruslan Tsalkov has as many as 4 children. And investigators from Navalny's team assured that Dad managed to provide for all of them.
Through their company, Liza and Yulia Tsalikova bought a 264 square meter property in the Moscow business center Kroswell-Komovniki for 132 million rubles, and several office spaces at 24 Posledny Lane with a total value of 85 million rubles. The Tsalikov sons, Daniel and Zaur, were even luckier. They own real estate using the same scheme as their sisters. Through their company Dominus Z, the brothers bought 2 plots of land in the village of Krasnoye in Domodedovo, although in fact they have already managed to sell one of them. Each plot is almost 1,000 sotkas and costs 260 million rubles apiece.
The Tsalikovs also registered 5 properties at once under Dominus Z, with a total area of over 1,000 square meters. The Shugo factory business centers on Zemlyanoy Val. They are worth almost 400 million. They bought up real estate quite recently, right during the war. In total, we found that the children of the Deputy Minister of Defense own property worth 1,100 million rubles.
If we don't pay attention to our own children, then why, excuse my language, did we even have them?
At the Ministry of Defense, Tsalkov was in charge of propaganda, oversaw the Yunarmia Youth Army, and the Patriot Park project. In addition, he was responsible for Sergei Shoigu's personal PR and his finances. Tsalkov oversaw the Department of Financial Control, meaning he managed the ministry's enormous budget.
Ruslan Tsalkov is something like a Grand Vizier, House Manager, Treasurer, and Chief Financial Officer all rolled into one. At the Ministry of Defense, especially during the period we know particularly well, he handled the most important assignments that came directly from Sergei Shoigu. If something needed to be distributed, land in some village, for example, it was Ruslan Tsalkov as a general and deputy minister who handled this. If someone needed to go and negotiate delicate matters, Ruslan Tsalkov was the one who did it. If it was necessary to divvy up, without exaggeration, 1 trillion ruble budget allocated for construction for the Ministry of Defense, Ruslan Tsalkov was in charge of that too. After him, it was Timur Lanov who handled these matters. I'd like to remind you, he's in prison and will apparently remain there for the rest of his days, because they're not letting him go to the war.
It was Timur Ivanov who, after being put in pre-trial detention, informed on his boss Tsalkov. And, as reported by the media, Tsalkov himself even came in for a face-to-face confrontation. According to VTHK UGPU, the general was supposed to be detained as early as last spring, but first Shoigu's protection, and later that of Marat Kambolov, vice president of the Kurchatov Institute Research Center, managed to stall the process. For this, Tsalkov paid $20 million, but his immunity didn't last long.
Testimony against Ruslan Tsalkov was given by several individuals involved in other corruption scandals. All of them are pre-trial detainees, people who made deals with the investigation and received the right to have their cases considered under a special procedure in court. at the very least, all the defendants in Timur Ivanov's case regarding the purchase of ships circumventing sanctions and the embezzlement of money through the bank. Intercommerce testified that Salikov was behind everything. The charge of organizing a criminal organization may indicate that security forces intend to combine the cases. Ruslana Tsanikova, with the cases of two other former Shoigu deputies, Pavel Popov and Timur Ivanov, as well as other high-ranking officials of the Russian Ministry of Defense.
Already now, Russia's main propagandists are reporting that Salikov could end up behind bars for 20 years. Moreover, all his property could be confiscated in favor of the state. Ruslan Salikov is the last of the 4 associates of Sergei Shoigu with whom he came to the Russian Ministry of Defense. And now, in the highest offices of Moscow, they are searching for an answer to the question, will Shoigu's closest ally betray him? And what will Putin decide? Could he really forget their fishing trips together and the nuts in the taiga?
We are high above the clouds. Much higher than the clouds.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Putin is next to be ousted. After the brilliant elimination of his Iranian ally Khamenei, Putin is consumed by total paranoia. He is terrified of a complete coup from within his own inner circle. Find out what's happening in the Kremlin in our report.
Putin's weak spot has been found.
I do not even want to contemplate or discuss such an unfortunate possibility. I really don't want to.
Well, they are already openly discussing this at the same time. Mr. Trump, Mr. Netanyahu.
I hear everything you are saying, but I do not even want to discuss it right now.
The lightning-fast overthrow of 2 Russian allies, Maduro and Khamenei, seriously frightened the Kremlin dictator.
Most of the people are already dead. We had a group in mind and they died. And now we have another group. They might be dead too, judging by the reports. So I think a third wave is coming.
Paranoid, Putin realizes that the same fate awaits him next.
Putin spreads destruction around himself, either political or physical. That's the first thing. Second, well, it's like that game Battleship. There's just one square left to cross out. In
Moscow, they're trying to figure out how to respond to Trump's unpredictable behavior.
If real patriotic reforms don't start in Russia now, the situation will simply become unpredictable. One by one, our allies are being systematically destroyed. It's clear who's next, and it's clear what negotiations with such an enemy mean.
Since Donald Trump returned to the White House, the Kremlin has avoided openly criticizing the US or its president. But now everyone is afraid for their own skin.
Here, of course, one can express deep disappointment that, despite reports of significant progress in these negotiations, the situation has still deteriorated into outright aggression.
Propagandists openly admit that the Russian Federation could be next after Iran. I
am assessing the prospects of what will happen. I understand very well what the next problem will be. For us, first and foremost, there is one question that concerns me. When will they come after us? Or have they already started? And we understand that when they talk about Iran, they're also talking about Russia. They will treat us the same way now. They will strike Russia even harder.
The murder undoubtedly touched on Putin's 2 deepest instincts. A deeply rooted paranoia about his own longevity and a drive for political survival, defined by achieving victory over Ukraine at any cost. This time,
Putin commented on the situation in the Middle East off camera.
Please accept my deepest condolences regarding the murder of the Supreme Leader of the Islamic Republic, Ali Khamenei, and members of his family, committed with a cynical disregard for all norms of human morality and international law.
And yet, notably, Putin did not name the countries behind the assassination.
Russians themselves perceive this as a situation where Putin has nothing to say. And this is perceived as a sign of weakness. Russia is next and Vladimir Putin is next. And when they talk about Amador and Khamenei, they see the portrait of Vladimir Putin. In
Russian circles, Khamenei's death has drawn comparisons to the overthrow of another dictator, whom Putin also called a friend.
Dear Mr. Gaddafi, esteemed Libyan colleagues, friends, allow me once again to warmly welcome you to Moscow.
Back then, he was not afraid to speak to journalists and did not hide his emotions. In 2011, Gaddafi's death truly enraged Putin.
they killed him, and his corpse was shown on all the world's TV channels. It was impossible to watch without disgust.
And afterwards, he stated that he was against solving problems by military means, as was done in Libya.
The murder of a person is in general a terrible crime. Armed groups that try to resolve domestic political issues by force of arms.
3 years later, the Kremlin cannibal would go to war in Donbas and then seek to occupy all of Ukraine with bombings and killings.
Agreements on this matter are being enforced with the help of the armed forces to achieve this goal, namely demilitarization. We will not allow armed forces to exist in Ukraine that pose a threat from the perspective of the Russian Federation and its people. Yes.
Over the years, Putin became more and more isolated from those around him. During the coronavirus pandemic, he hid in a bunker, rarely appeared in public, and FSO officers had to quarantine. Now he has betrayed all his friends and comrades to whom he had promised help. And now the only thing left in the hands of the unhinged butler is nuclear weapons.
The elimination of Putin is A, absolutely legal, B, promising, C. The cheapest and simplest way to bring an end to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
Palace intrigues are intensifying. Venezuela and Iran have shown the extent to which traitors can infiltrate the inner circles of dictators. Putin is a coward, and he is afraid to carry out purges, again whispering in their ears that they could have been in the place of Iran and Venezuela.
My office was destroyed after an attack by the Israeli regime. I smell gas. I should leave this building.
If the head of the regime is not planning to transfer power, then top officials and elite groups may start considering their own strategies for such a scenario.
Today someone said, well, the president wants to do this very quickly. He'll get tired of it, but I won't get tired of it.
A US and Israeli military operation against Iran will definitely hit Russia and Putin. Everything is just beginning. Dictators leave office either for prison or the grave.
They put their sons in charge, but what's the point? The clumsy Russian air defense, out of panic, is shooting down its own helicopters near Rostov. And our drones are smashing everything to pieces. 5 warships at once in Novorossiysk, and they're torching Putin's tankers. Watch how the enemy fleet and aviation are rapidly going to the bottom. Don't miss it.
Shoot down your own so that others are afraid. On the night of March 4th, during another drone attack by the Ukrainian armed forces on the Rostov region, the local air defense shot down its own helicopter. Mi-8.
I am looking at that over there and wondering if it could actually be what I think it is, or if my eyes are just playing tricks on me right now.
Chopper burst?
You need to get out of this place.
Yeah, it's not flying this way.
Friendly Fire and Z-Public have confirmed it. The aircraft was damaged during air defense operations against Ukrainian UAVs, and the crew was killed.
Unfortunately, as a result of the UAV attack, it was destroyed. Our aerospace forces, eternal memory to the fighters.
Let us recall that at the end of January, the Ukrainian armed forces shot down a Russian Su-34 fighter jet. The crew of the aircraft was killed. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Army confirmed the loss of the Russian bird. At that time, Russian war correspondents and public channels unanimously spoke about the crash of the aircraft, and that there was no shoot-down, nor could there have been one.
We've lost our Su-34. Both pilots were killed. Neither Snake Island, Odessa, nor Petrid had anything to do with it. The Kokol started it, and ours picked it up.
Not only in the air, but also on the water. Novorossiysk drones damaged 5 Russian Navy ships. Ukrainian drones damaged warships that were stationed in a protected bay deep inside the Gulf.
As a result of the strike, 5 warships that were in the port sustained damage. One of them received additional damage. It is likely referring to the minesweeper Valentin Pikul, Military Unit 90,921 Novorossiysk. There is also information about damage sustained by the ships Yeysk and Kasimov. It is known that 3 servicemen were killed and 16 wounded.
The port of Novorossiysk is far away and, on paper, well protected. But in reality, Ukrainian drones have already destroyed naval military targets in this port more than once.
A large concentration of air defense systems and various means of destruction, machine guns, aircraft, and yet Ukrainian attacks are still able to disable Russian ships. Even if these ships are not key assets, the smaller the fleet, the fewer opportunities and less power Russia has in the Black Sea.
Systematic strikes are being carried out in the USSR not only on military targets but also on the goose that lays the golden eggs. For the aggressor's budget, off the coast of Libya, the Russian Shadow Fleet's substation tanker Arctic Metagas was attacked by a drone.
The Russian gas tanker that was attacked yesterday by unknown drones in the Mediterranean Sea has suffered serious damage in the engine room and cannot be restored.
The Russian Ministry of Transport called the drone strike on the Russian tanker Arctic Metagas in the Mediterranean Sea an act of international terrorism.
If tankers are attacked, the owners of these vessels suffer enormous losses. Tankers are usually old, between 15 and 25 years. And even a minor hit means they can no longer be used. The owner of the tanker panics. He loses money and suffers losses. And this should lead him to a logical conclusion. There is no reason to do business with the Russian Federation.
Since the beginning of 2026 alone, Ukrainian defense forces have carried out more than 40 strikes on Russian military targets and oil and gas infrastructure. According to the General Staff, over the past 3 months, Russia has lost 5 aircraft and 2 helicopters. In addition, 3 ships have been destroyed. Another 3 have sustained significant damage. A submarine has also been destroyed. One of the tasks of the Ukrainian armed forces is to minimize Russia's offensive potential, both in the air and at sea.
What do you think about these events? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video. Stay with us, things are about to get even more interesting.